This week, we're continuing our series on the 10 stages of a criminal jury trial. And this week, we're talking about the government's case in chief, stage 4. So stick around and let's discuss. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope you're having a great week and gearing up for another good weekend. So we're on stage 4 of our 10 stages of a criminal trial. And stage 4, at least as I've broken them up, is the government's case in chief. The government's case in chief is realistically the bulk of the trial. If a trial lasts 4 weeks, 3 of that might be the government's case. The government's case is by far what takes the longest. It's the most detailed. It's where the most happens, right? And that's because, remember, in a criminal trial, the government always has the burden of proof. They are always the ones that are tasked with bringing forward the evidence that proves a person is guilty of a particular crime. We talk about in jury selection and in voir dire, we talk with jury panelists about how if a trial ended right now at the end of jury selection and you haven't heard anything from the government's witnesses, what is your verdict? And it's not guilty because the government starts on the wrong end of the spectrum. They have the burden. If you have this big continuum of this side is 100% guilty, this side is 100% not guilty or innocent, we start over here. And the government has to build their case in their case in chief until they have convinced the jury beyond a reasonable doubt that each and every element is met. And so it's for that reason that they typically have the bulk of the witnesses because they have to. They have to provide evidence. If they don't provide enough evidence in their case in chief, let's say they've put their witnesses on and their witnesses did not testify in a convincing fashion, or they didn't testify about a specific element, or they didn't testify about a specific crime, and so there's no evidence in the record that that happened, then as a defense lawyer, we don't put a case on at all. We simply say, they've rested, they didn't prove their case over, give us our not guilty, and we can move on. So the government's case is where the bulk of the trial happens. Now, that said, it doesn't mean that the defense lawyer's job is easy during that time. In fact, this is where the most difficult part, in my opinion, of a defense lawyer's job lies. Because even though it's the government's time, it's the government's case, it's the government's witnesses that are testifying, the defense lawyer is tasked with still providing a case to the defendant. Now remember, in a majority of criminal cases, a majority of criminal trials, as a defense lawyer, we likely won't be putting any witnesses on the stand, especially not any witnesses that have any direct knowledge of what happened more often than not, right? So we have to present our case, we have to present our theory, we have to present our narrative through the government's witnesses, through cross-examination, through asking them pointed questions or directed questions. And we have to do that with witnesses who are not necessarily friendly to us. In fact, most of them are very hostile toward us. So whereas the government is putting witnesses on where they have gone through a script with those witnesses, these are the questions I'm going to ask, here is how I would like you to answer them, and they've worked on their testimony, they know what they're going to say most times, we don't have that luxury. And so the defense lawyer's job is to somehow craft a narrative using storytellers that don't want to say that narrative, right? It's very difficult. It's why on cross-examination, lawyers are allowed to ask leading questions. On cross, we can lead. You know, you've heard or you've seen in movies objection leading. You know, lead counsel is leading the witness. That's an objection that is appropriate when somebody's on direct examination. You're not allowed to lead your witness. Just have them tell their story. They know what their story is. On cross, we're allowed to lead because this is our only chance to try and get our narrative out using witnesses that don't want to get our narrative out, right? So it's very difficult, but it's very important. It's why cross-examination is such a skill that most lawyers spend years practicing and crafting and trying to perfect, and they never end up perfecting. I mean, there are legends, titans in the legal industry that are just phenomenal at cross-examination. And when you talk to them, they'll still tell you that they learn something new every single trial. So the government's case in chief, in my opinion, one of the more fun parts of the trial to watch because so much can happen. It's where the bulk of the legal work happens. It's where the majority of the trial happens. And it's where the government has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And if they don't, give us our not guilty. So, hope that was informative. As always, I wish you all a very, very good week, a very, very good weekend. Again, please, if you have any questions about this or just want to chat or anything like that, come by one of my live streams, usually on Sundays and Wednesdays on the evenings. So 7:45, 8 o'clock Texas time. I'd love to have you hang out. I'd love to have you ask whatever questions, or we can talk about this in more depth and we can go longer than 6 minutes on a YouTube video. But until then, have a great weekend. Have a great week. Be good and stay on the right side of the bars.